Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always for this podcast is Danny Gillette. We're back for another episode, and we're going to talk about Nebraska basketball, their failures at Penn State earlier this week, and how much trouble they're in terms of the NCAA tournament or in the future. We're also going to look at some Nebraska football recruiting nuggets, some things going on in the diamond with Jordy Ball absolutely killing it. So before we get into all that, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section. And Danny, how are you on this Friday morning?
I'm tired. I watched the Foreign Nations face-off final right here in Boston. Went into overtime, and what a great tournament! I mean, I know it's like not really an NHL season type of tournament in terms of it counting towards the regular season, but all the teams played hard. All the stars were out, and what a great game! Unfortunately, Canada got the game-winning goal again. Reminded me of the 2010 Olympics, but boy, it was a fun tournament, and hopefully they continue it. I know there were some injury concerns, especially in Boston up here with Charlie McAvoy out for the season. He aggravated his injury, but I do love me some hockey, and I love that all the players took this tournament seriously. So it was a fun watch, but I am tired now.
It was fun. I didn't watch it. I have to say, I have to admit that I'm not a huge hockey fan. Probably should have, but I was following it along. But I was watching Severance, so I'm a huge Severance fan. So that was my viewing point. I'm obsessed with it. At any rate, I do think that that's a good hockey tournament. I do hope that they kind of keep that going, and maybe that'll help, rekindle hockey a little bit. But from a Nebraska perspective, let's get right into it. Wednesday night was our predictions were both wrong about what was going to happen in Happy Valley. I did write at HuskerBigRed.com in my bold predictions that the only way Penn State was going to win that game is if they, forced a bunch of turnovers. I said if Penn State forced Nebraska to turn the ball over on more than 20% of its possessions, they were going to have a good chance to win. Nebraska had 6 turnovers, basically by the first TV timeout, and they just never really got into the game. They never got off the bus, so to speak. So that was disappointing. But I do feel like, there's a bit of real overreaction from the fan base, because if we look at this from, a 360-foot view, right? We're going into these 2 road games, and when you're playing 2 road games, generally you want to win one of those 2. I mean, that's the goal. Nebraska did that. I understand that Penn State is last in the Big Ten and all this other stuff, but they were still, in the NET rankings, they're still ranked like 80th. So it's not like they're a garbage team. They just, the Big Ten is really difficult this year. And, it's, if you don't play well, you're going to get your butt kicked, and they're going to have to respond. But I don't know. Are you worried about this team? There's 4 games left. 3 of them are at home. I've said all along they got to get to 20 wins. So they've got 17 right now. They play Michigan at home, Iowa at home, Minnesota at home, and Ohio State on the road, who just lost to Northwestern by 21 points at home. So all 4 of those games probably are winnable. But how much trouble is Nebraska in right now, Danny, if any at all?
I don't feel like they're in trouble yet. I mean, I still feel like they can, win 2 more games. And, this team is so Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, they looked really good during their 6-game win streak. Everything was clicking, and now they've fallen back into that slump again. So I'm not really worried yet. I feel confident they can win the games they need to. But you talked about the team didn't look like they got off the bus. They didn't look like they got out of bed. So no, I'm not too worried yet, honestly. I feel like they'll be able to bounce back strong.
And I know people don't like to hear this type of thing, but I really do feel like some of it just is a fatigue a little bit. I mean, they had to play a lot of games, especially on the road. Like this game against Michigan on Monday, that's going to be their first home game in 11 days. So, I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for this team by, any stretch of the imagination, but, they had to play 5 games in 2 weeks, 4 games in 10 days, 3 of them, on the road. So, I mean, I do understand a little bit why you have tired legs. It was, it was disappointing. I mean, I just expected to see more out of guys like Juwan Gary and Bryce Williams, especially early in that game, trying to establish the tempo. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, when you look at the bracketology projections, the bracket matrix and everything, it did not really change things for Nebraska. They did drop in the NET rankings, which is the NET rankings hate Nebraska. I mean, there's just like no.
Yeah, I feel like the NET rankings aren't a good baseline in my opinion now.
They could beat like Michigan State, or like they could probably beat Michigan and like drop a spot. Like I don't understand the NET rankings. I just don't. But they're still 50, like around 50th. So that's not in a spot that's going to hurt them. And they've got, a really good chance. Michigan's playing Michigan State tonight. And whoever wins that game is going to be sole place in first, but Michigan's going to have to turn around 2 days after that and come to Lincoln, Nebraska. So to me, that's a golden opportunity, especially, if Michigan wins, that happens to win the game tonight, and they've got a little bit of a cushion in the Big Ten race. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but maybe you can get Michigan on a bit of an emotional letdown, and they're going to be tired as heck too, because that's going to be their third game. They played on Tuesday as well, so that's going to be their third game in less than a week. So maybe Nebraska can take advantage of some rough scheduling from the Michigan side of things. But truly, to me, I think they have to win the games, Iowa and Minnesota at home. If they win those two games and they win one in the Big Ten tournament, this team's going dancing.
The fatigue thing isn't an excuse. I mean, it's reality. They've hit a wall, and we talked about this, I think, last week. Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary, they've been asked to do a lot, and you can see how tired their bodies are. So, I mean, now it's just about pushing through it and trying to make the most of it. But this team is definitely tired right now, and I know that doesn't excuse what happened on Wednesday because they played bad. There's no two ways about it, but there's definitely something to your fatigue comment for sure.
And then I wanted to mention too, talk a little about Fred Hoiberg here in a sec, because I know you had some Twitter debates going on, but the Nebraska women did get a really important win on Wednesday night, beating Oregon, another team that's kind of on the bubble. So I'm thinking that's probably going to, secure their spot in the tournament. They're playing Washington at home on Sunday, though, which will be Alexis Markowski's last home game. She just had her 50th double-double. So it'd be great to see them get that win. I feel like if they can get that, they'll probably wrap up their berth. But yeah, in terms of the men, I mean, this would be, if they can get it, it would be 2 years in a row of making the NCAA tournament. I actually had somebody comment, like, who cares if Nebraska makes the NCAA tournament? They're probably going to lose their first round game anyway, which, I mean, I understand your sentiment. Like, I get it. We've never won a tournament game, but making the NCAA tournament and not making the NCAA tournament is a big deal for your basketball program. And if they make it 2 years in a row, I think that's only going to help them with recruiting and everything else moving forward. So it is a big deal, win or lose the game.
People have to realize that there is a ceiling for this program, I think, and I think it's not going to be a national championship, and it may not even be the Sweet 16 with the way the Big Ten is formed now, but making the NCAA tournament is a big deal.
To me, like, what you have to do if you're a program like Nebraska, because it's going to be very hard to ever build a true title contender. You're going to have to catch lightning in a bottle, but what you need to do is make the tournament every year. And if you make the tournament, then that's when you get lucky and you start making runs and stuff like that. I mean, like, Iowa State wasn't a program that anybody thought could ever win a championship, and Fred got them pretty far. They got pretty far in that tournament, and they're still a pretty solid program. So, like, yeah, I don't think Nebraska's ever going to be a basketball blue blood or whatever, but I do think that this team can consistently make the NCAA tournament, and I think that Fred Hoiberg is the best option to do that. And I know that some people may not have as much confidence in him after this season, but I think this season's given me more confidence in his ability to, continue to win with this program in the Big Ten.
And people thought that I wanted Fred to be fired. I don't want Fred to be fired because apparently a lot of these fans don't remember how bare the cupboard was when Tim Miles left. And I understand his final season, there was an injury to Isaac Copeland, I think it was, and that kind of knocked the doors off of that season because they started 10-2. And, the cupboard was bare for whatever reason. Tim Miles could develop, but towards the end of things, he just couldn't recruit. And now at least Fred is bringing in rosters that can recruit. I think he's led the program close to its ceiling, and I don't think he deserves to be fired. And the fans that want him fired, I don't know if you get a better coach in here.
Yeah, I don't think that you would get a better coach in here. I mean, you could obviously find other quality coaches, but I think Fred Hoiberg is really good, and I still think this team's going to make the NCAA tournament. So we'll see what happens on Monday, but I feel like this team's going to bounce back, and so just take a deep breath, everybody. It's going to be fine. Even if they lose to Michigan on Monday, that's not the end of the world. But they can't lose to Iowa and Minnesota at home. They lose one of those two games at home, and then I think you're in trouble of missing the NCAA tournament. So
Iowa scares me a little bit, honestly. Minnesota, not so much, but Iowa scares me for sure.
Yeah, but every game is at this point scary. I mean, with the way that this team's playing, because you just don't know who's going to show up. So
yeah, you're right.
And the Big Ten's too difficult. If you don't play well, you'll get your butt kicked. It doesn't matter who you are. So that's just the way this league is. So you mentioned some recruiting stuff. That's a good segue to recruiting, and I want to start with Trey Taylor,
Yep.
who the 2027 quarterback, the 4-star. He's scheduled some spring visits. Nebraska is one of the programs that's going to get a visit this spring, along with Notre Dame, Georgia, Illinois, Michigan, Texas A&M, and LSU. He did make some interesting comments. Here's what Trey Taylor had to say about Nebraska. This is the only school that I can say I absolutely love the whole staff. Only 2 schools have had the head coach come to my school. Nebraska is one of them. I feel very comfortable there. So I think Nebraska is very near the top of this recruitment, and it's a good sign. I think that Trey Taylor is coming back on campus, and hopefully they can get him back again this summer. Like, get him on campus as many times as possible.
Yeah, Craig Smith of Rivals made a good point earlier this week when he said that Nebraska is close enough to home for Trey Taylor, but far enough away to where he can have that college experience, and that definitely played a part in it too. Taylor has also talked about how much he likes the business school, so he's looking at it from an academic point as well, which is important when deciding your future. And so I think Nebraska is really in play here. They've made Taylor a priority target as far back as last calendar year, and so I think this is really good news for Nebraska. I love Trey Taylor, and I think he's an extremely talented quarterback. And getting a quarterback from the Midwest in the Chicago area, where there is a lot of talented players and prospects, I think would be awesome for the program.
And I think just the fact that they're getting him in early, they're not behind in this recruitment in terms of the elite quarterback, and so I like that. Like, get this guy done, make him your top priority, and kind of set the stage for the 2027 class. So I really like what Nebraska's doing there. In terms of just some other the 2026 class, there's also some news. Tight end Luke Sorensen out of California locked in 5 official visits. Nebraska's one of them, and so he's kind of been a top priority. Let's see, who are the other visitors that we've got coming? Is it Lincoln Watkins is the other tight end that we've got coming? So that's another one. And then an offensive tackle, Matali Benjamin, out of West Valley City, Utah, 6'6", 305 pounds, coming for an official visit this summer. Nebraska actually is the leader right now, according to the On3 prediction machine. Not that means a whole lot, but still some quality visits. And then this summer, another running back that's going to be another visitor, DeSeven Walker out of Missouri, Raymore, Missouri. So another guy that Jamar Mosey could help with, ranked 99th overall in the On3 industry rankings. So he's going to be taking an official visit. Kansas is the slight lead right now, according to the On3 prediction machine, but we're right there. And according to Lincoln Watkins, the 3-star tight end out of the state of Michigan, who's 407th, Nebraska has a slight lead right now over Purdue. So that one's kind of interesting in the sense that Michigan hasn't really been involved in that recruitment. So, I guess what it makes me feel like Nebraska's almost out of the running with Matt Ludwig. So, because I haven't seen much about him at all.
No, I haven't seen much about him at all until you mentioned his name right there. I had forgotten. But I feel good about Lincoln Watkins. I mean, Marcus Satterfield took an in-home visit with Watkins at the end of January, I believe it was. And I think Watkins came to campus for junior day. So I feel good about Lincoln Watkins. I don't want to say Matt Ludwig's completely out the door, but like you mentioned, I haven't seen anything about him. I haven't heard anything about him. So the one thing, one of the many things the staff is good at is always having a plan B. And I think Lincoln Watkins is a very talented plan B. And I think Luke Sorensen is somebody to watch as well, although both of those visit lists are very impressive. So we'll see what happens. But those two are going to be recruitments to watch for sure.
Yeah, and I think with Ludwig, Michigan and Texas Tech both visited him in Billings for one of his basketball games. So I feel like it's down to those two teams, although Nebraska does have some family ties. But I don't know. I feel like it's right now, I think the essential battle, what I've heard, just because I do have some connections, I think Texas Tech actually might have the edge. And I think what's going to happen is I think that Texas Tech is going to put up a huge NIL offer. And I don't know that Michigan's going to pay that much for a tight end, just to be honest, like positional value wise. So I think Matt Ludwig's going to go to Texas Tech based on just NIL money. So
any Garrett McGuire connection to that too as well, or just based off of NIL money, do you think?
I think it's just NIL. I mean, Garrett was there. Garrett was part of the trip with his dad, but I think they just have the money to offer. And I think if Michigan was close or willing to match it, I think they would probably get him just based on, they have quite a good history of getting tight ends to the NFL. So I think that if all things being equal, I think they probably would win that recruitment. But I don't know. Right now, I feel like Texas Tech. And so maybe it's just a situation where Nebraska's like, we're not getting into a bidding war for a tight end. Like, I'm sorry. And that makes sense. Like, you have to make those decisions. Yes, tight ends can be really valuable, but, I understand them not wanting to get into a bidding war for Matt
Me too.
Ludwig.
And I feel confident about the room for the future. So, I don't blame them for not wanting to get into a bidding war over a tight end either. I think it's a smart play because, like you said, you have to be careful with how you use your resources. So I'd rather them use it on, a running back or some more linemen.
And then in terms of in-state recruits that you need to know, Torrey Pittman, the safety kind of athlete, wide receiver, got an offer from LSU. So just over recently, so he's going to be he's going to be the next one. Like Missouri, Kansas State, Miami, all these teams have offered him literally in the last week. Iowa State. I mean, it's there's going to be a lot of interest in him. So he's going to be, I think, the next kind of national recruitment out of Nebraska. So going to be one to watch for the 2027 class.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he went elsewhere just because he's that good. But it's good to see over these last couple classes the amount of talented kids in Nebraska getting national recognition, and those that are staying home as well is kind of cool to see. But I expect Pittman to not end up at Nebraska, and that's a good thing for the state. It's a good thing to showcase their talent, and the fact that so many schools are looking at Nebraska as a state with rich high school football talent is very is a very positive thing.
Yeah, I think it is. So it'll be interesting to see, where they kind of develop things with him. I think they've got off to a good start. He's been to campus a few times, so they've definitely made him a priority, and I feel like that recruitment's still pretty wide open. So, but getting a guy like Trey Taylor and starting off like that definitely would be a good help.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's switch over to wrap up. Here's some Diamond notes, and it's been a fun start to the season for the Nebraska softball team. Got another win yesterday. Jordy Ball, a complete game win over Baylor, 4-1. She only allowed 2 hits, struck out 9, and actually got Nebraska out of a bases loaded jam in the 6th inning with no outs. So she's been incredible. They did lose to number 4 UCLA last night, 9-1, but Jordy didn't pitch. So I wish she would have. If it would have been a postseason game, I'm sure she would have just pitched both of them. So kind of interesting that they didn't pitch her against UCLA. But at any rate, this Nebraska team definitely looks like one that could make the College World Series.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible week Jordy Ball's had. She had a no-hitter on Friday, I believe it was, and this is just, we knew coming in that she was going to kind of be the catalyst for this program, and unfortunately, last season was cut short by injury, but now it looks like she was never even injured. She's just firing the ball and pitching at a high level, so it's made the softball team fun to watch.
And what's incredible, I mean, I'll be honest, I did not realize she was as good of a hitter as she is. I mean, I knew she was an incredible pitcher, but my God, she's an incredible hitter too. Like how many pitchers can play in the field every day when they don't pitch? So, I mean, like what she's been able to do from both perspectives, I think is incredible. She might be the best player in the country. Like, I'm not even joking. She probably is the best player in the country. And it's going to be really fun these next couple of months. And hopefully, we'll be able to make a run. Obviously, want to win the Big Ten championship first. That's like the number one goal, and that's obviously not going to be easy with UCLA and some of these other West Coast programs. But at any rate, as far as baseball, a 2-2 start, which was a little bit, disappointing. But the loss to UC Irvine, they're ranked now, so nothing really to worry about there. 3 games on the road this week at Louisiana. It's going to be the same guys starting: Macy McConaughey, Will Walsh, Ty Horn. So big weekend series, and then they'll play at Sam Houston State next week as well, in kind of a midweek game. But yeah, good, kind of a solid start for baseball. I know fans were kind of bummed about the 2-2 start, but I mean, that's baseball. You can't overreact too much to 1 or 2 games.
And it's a tough start to the schedule early in the season. So I think once this team finds its groove, it'll perform much better than we saw in the first weekend. Although a win over Vanderbilt is certainly not a bad thing. So,
I mean, I think that definitely shows the potential that this team has, and I really do like the top 3 starters. I think Ty Horn I think he only pitched like 5 innings in his first game against, I think that was against Vanderbilt actually, but he only allowed like 2 runs. He didn't get a win, didn't get the decision, but he put out a solid effort. McConaughey didn't have his best game in the opener, but he's going to be solid. And Will Walsh he tossed 7 scoreless innings in their win, so I think he's
reminded me a lot
really
of last
solid.
season's Big Ten tournament with his performance.
Yep.
So,
and Jackson Brockett's still out there, and he had the no-hitter obviously last year and that big game in the Big Ten tournament. Like, they don't win that Big Ten championship if he doesn't deliver in that tournament. So I really like where this team is at, and I know some fans were frustrated by the start, but
what else is new? What else is new? They're frustrated by everything. What else is new? Everything will be okay.
If they lose this series against Louisiana, if they lose 2 out of 3, I will give you permission to be upset about that. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, that sounds good. And then if the basketball team takes a complete nosedive, then you can talk about if Fred Hoiberg is on the hot seat. But
yeah. So, all right. All right, you guys. Well, it's kind of a shorter episode today. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.